Yeah.
Hey everybody, if you're just showing up, we are ready to start. We'll do a check-in round, but what we do is we actually start with just an open question as people are showing up. I'll read that in just a second. That looks funny. I'm sharing screen here. Here it is. And this is a pretty direct question. This is the question we've arrived at after 6 weeks of this program, and with 4 today. We're going to spend the next month figuring out if you can build the thing you want to build on these tools. So if you've never done this before, all you have to do is go to the link that I'm dropping here in the chat. Here it is. And if you go to that link, it's pretty self-explanatory how to just log your answer to this question. Give that a try while people are rolling in, and then as soon as we have something to talk about on the screen, we'll jump into a check-in round. Hey, and welcome. Just showing up. We're starting with a question that you can access via this link in the chat, and we'll get started in just a minute.
Hey James, this is Diego. I think the responses are turned off.
Yeah. Wait, say it
Yeah,
again.
I can submit. Can now submit.
Oh, it does. It says that down here in the corner. Hold on. How about now?
That works. Thanks.
I was hidden. Sorry about that, guys. I was wondering where everybody was. Here it comes. Here it comes. All right. Same link. Same drill. Don't call it a to-do list. As a child of the 80s and 90s, that's always a construction you can use in my circles. Don't call it a blank.
Right, right.
Give you just another minute, and then we'll jump into a out loud check-in round. All right. Well, you know where to find this board. Keep them coming. And yeah, not a clue, still learning. That's a valid answer. That's why we're here. I'm just going to pass it off to Adrian to open our check-in round. After you check in, you can pass it to somebody else. If you've never done it before, it's just a chance to say hello and how you're showing up. If you're not sure what to say, you can think out loud about what you see here on my screen, or you can just tell us what you had for breakfast. I'll pass it to Adrian to get us started.
Hey guys, I'm doing good. Contrary to James, we have around 20 degrees and it's sunny. And I pass it to Newman.
Thanks, Adrian. I'm doing good. A little bit busy. I've got family in town, and I went away for the weekend, and et cetera, et cetera. But I'm pretty excited to sort of wrap up the old projects and start in on new projects. Yeah, yeah. How about Diego?
Hi, everyone. I think I mentioned this last week, but I'm based in Portland, Oregon. It's very cloudy here today. And yeah, I'm very, very excited to hear what you all want to build. And I have some crazy ideas, but I'm not a real builder. So I'm more of a, let's say, a creative partner in this endeavor. And I'll pass it on to Nori. Wait, did Nori just go?
Yeah, not yet. Thanks, Diego. Hey, can y'all hear me?
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. I'm doing good. Sunny day here. It's colder than I thought. It's only 10 degrees Celsius, which is about 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Going up to about 53 or 14. And happy to be here and join you all. And that's interesting. You're in Portland, Diego. I'm in Forest Grove, Oregon, about twice a month right now because that's where my parents live. So it's about 20 minutes outside of Portland. And happy to see you all. And I'll pass it to, sorry, I'm on my phone because my internet's weird. I can't see the participant list.
Harsha's
Very
here.
easy.
Harsha's here.
I'll pass it to Harsha.
I'm doing good. I've been working on the hackathon a little bit that for Gimbal Labs, so we're pretty excited, and we updated the Gimbal Labs website. So yeah, we're keeping busy, and it's been super fun without too many meetings. So yeah, and I will pass it on to Nikhil.
Hi everyone, glad to be here. I'm excited to learn about Andamio and what all it can offer in terms of contributions and managing of projects, managing credentials. So I'm pretty interested in learning about Cardano XP2. I really like the idea and the value proposition, and I think it is pretty important for a decentralized ecosystem. And yeah, happy to learn from all of you.
And just pick another name from the list to pass it on to.
Yeah. Maybe Roberto can go next.
Thanks. I'm doing good. Weather is not the best today. It's kind of chilly. I was hoping that it was going to be sunny, but it's fine. So I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Happy to be here with you all. Louis, have you been already? Have you gone?
No, I haven't. How's everybody doing? I don't know, my background is loud, but yeah, pretty excited to break a few things in today's session. And I'll pass it to Ian.
The weather has been fine in Kenya. It's warm and it's raining, the perfect ratio. And I've been attending these sessions for the past 1 month, and I look forward to learn more from the team. And for any new person, I can also tell you a bit about how Andamio works and what it is. So feel free to ping me in the Discord.
And how about we pass it to M? M, how you showing up?
That may be me. I assume that's me.
Oh
hey,
yeah.
Yep.
Hey.
Megan / Polymath.
Megan.
Yep. I guess I'm fine. This is my first event with this one. Since I'm a staunch metric conversionist, even though I am Central Ohio based, I will say that the weather app says Central Ohio is 5 degrees Celsius. So very nice, beautiful.
Nice. And we'll pass it to Lucas next.
Hey everyone, happy to be here. Everything is looking good. A lot of things rolling, different projects. The weather's, goes back and forth between, winter and spring, but I can't complain overall. I'm looking at the moving average, so I'm happy. Yeah, excited to be here and learn more about Andamio.
And we'll wrap it up with Sebastian. Hey, partner.
Yeah, we're good. Thanks. Let's get the party started. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm feeling good. I mentioned as we were jumping in, it did snow today. I wasn't happy about that, but it melted already. I can't see any right now, so we're good. And yeah, it's fun knowing, Diego, that you're based in Portland. I'm in a band, and our drummer is moving to Portland. It's very sad. But he's really good. So if you know any musicians, or if you are one, I should put you guys in touch. So what do you want to build on Andamio? This is where we are after 6 weeks. And it makes sense what people are sharing, right? Some of these are specific and some of them aren't yet. And that's okay. What we did at Gimbal Labs last week is we wrapped up our collaborative season. Newman took us through a process of wrapping up the year, and we left with a couple of projects to work on. Those are just getting started right now. And so it makes sense as we look ahead to the next few months, where in my experience, these last few years on the Cardano ecosystem, asynchronous work really starts to take center stage, because different people take breaks at different times over the months of May, June, July, August. And that's what's ahead of us right now. So looking forward to that. And we have some time to figure out what everybody here wants to build. But the idea of this program is that a month from now, we have 4 sessions left, including today, everybody will have built something. That something might be a standalone app. It might be in collaboration with somebody else here. It might be an integration with a platform you already use. There's lots of possibilities, and it depends on what you really want to focus in on. But just to look at the answers that came through, a social layer for Cardano. Many possible ideas, but they haven't converged yet. A self-management tool, but don't call it a to-do list. A place to aggregate contributions to a social impact outcome. Not a clue. Still learning how it all fits together and what the possibilities are. A course that doesn't have to live in someone else's content management system and has projects baked in and a lot of things. So I would say 4 of these look like they're trending towards something specific. 3 of them are still in a general state. And in both cases, that's okay. Ian, thanks for the call to action to reach out to you in Discord. Really want to encourage people here. If somebody else in this cohort brings an idea that you're excited about, you just heard everybody check in. You know that everybody here is approachable, and it's worth starting a conversation. All right. If you hear an idea that inspires you, follow up on that, and we'll see what happens. The other thing we do here is we have this GitHub repo. And this is, for now, it's just a place where agendas live. And if you go to this landing page, oh, the README is not updated yet, but sorry about that. I'll add it. The agenda is here. And you can see what we've already covered. Check-in round. What do you want to build? Q&A. I wanted to open it up in just a moment, just for anybody to ask more specific questions so that we can really set our goals for the next few weeks. So more on that in just a moment. Then we'll do a feedback review. And if there's time, I have a demo that we can work through to start just giving each other ideas and giving you some ideas of what to try next. But I want to start now just with an open Q&A. If there's anything you didn't get a chance to ask about in the opening round, or if you are still in a place of exploration and you have a what if question or something you've been thinking about, yeah, kind of like AMA style, what questions do folks have about what you've learned so far and where we're going next? Harsha.
I just wanted to bring it back to the Andamio credential, which is currently like a hash, right? The shape of it is just a hash. How do we use it in general? How do we move around this credential like outside of the Andamio app, at least like according to the team?
Excellent. So looking at, and let's look at the example too. I'm going to go to pre-prod. Whoops. Well, actually, that's going to be helpful too. But let's go to the pre-prod app. And I'm not even going to log in. I'm just going to look at a course, and it doesn't really matter what course it is either. Here's a draft of the Cardano Go PBL course that just has one module that was uploaded to pre-prod. Okay.
And we're still seeing the GitHub screen.
Oh, I'm not sharing the screen. I see. Sorry about that. Let's zip to this. You got Andamio now?
Yes.
All right. So this is the interface. If you've played with the Andamio app, it's already familiar. But I want to answer Harsha's question by looking at what we can see right here. First of all, in the public URL, this is called a course ID. But this is also a policy ID, all right? If I, oops, let's go, I'm gonna open up Andamio scan, but I also wanna open up pre-prod Cardano scan. Okay. This course ID, oops, copy it again, is a policy ID on the Cardano blockchain, okay? And it has a standardized name, right? We use a different policy ID for every instance that gets created, but the same asset name each time, local, state, NFT. And then this NFT is used in different transactions depending on how that course is being used, okay? So that's the first part. When you create a new course or create a new project, a local state NFT is minted and you are the owner of it. As the owner, you can really only do one thing. You can add additional teachers to a project, or you can add additional managers to, I said that wrong. Add additional teachers to a course, or add additional managers to a project. These are the administrative roles that can actually take action on this local state NFT. The way we've built the system, we built it so that by default, if you use this app to mint a new course or to mint a new project, you will also be a teacher or a manager. But on chain, that doesn't have to be the case. Okay, so first thing, the owner mints a course or a project and then can add teachers or managers. So far, so good? Okay, so those roles are similar. What can the teacher or the manager do? Well, on the course side, the teacher can add modules to a course, or they can assess assignments. All right. So every module that shows up here, when I try to earn that, well, this is pre-prod. I wasn't, let's find one that's actually set up. That one looks good. Okay. Once a module exists on chain, it'll have an assignment that can be committed to. And that's what students will do. They will make a commitment to the assignment by following the details here. And then the teacher assesses that assignment. They say, yes, I accept it. The credential is earned. Or no, I deny it. And that was not good enough evidence yet submitted for that, right? So teacher, they can create modules and put them on chain, and they can assess assignments. On the project side, the project manager has a similar role. They can put tasks on chain, and they can assess task commitments. So you see the similarity there between course management and project management, okay? Finally, we get to Harsha's actual question. Okay, so what is the credential? Well, the way it works out is that every credential has a unique address on the blockchain. That address is going to be, I wish I had like a whiteboard. I'm going to type it in the chat. Okay, the address of a credential is course ID dot SLT hash. All right, you can look at what I just wrote in the chat. And now I want to explain what this means, right? So the course ID, that's that NFT that was minted by the owner when the course was created. The SLT hash is the hash of the text of these three learning targets, which becomes a credential. Okay. And that's why each one is unique, because even if anybody can make a credential with these three learning targets and it would hash to the same hash. See what I'm saying? But they wouldn't have the same course ID. So you can have different course ID dot same SLT hash. But any given credential has a unique identifier like that on chain. How do we wrap it all up? What if I want to move outside of this app? Well, credentials have these absolute addresses that are logged on the blockchain, course ID.SLT hash. These SLTs, they are stored in a database, but you can also find them via on-chain only tools. So for example, I need to manage modules here. Okay, so these transactions, the SLTs are stored in these transactions because they're part of the redeemer to the transaction. So they are actually accessible on chain. But we also store them in a database, right? For easy lookup, these SLTs are also stored in our standard issue Postgres database that's accessible via our API, right? And in that Web2 style database, we store SLTs, we store the title of a module like this, okay? We store the content of the lessons like this. But you don't have to use that content to use an Andamio credential, right? The credential is just course ID.SLT hash. You might say, wait a minute, I could teach this lesson better than this lesson content right here, right? So it's actually 100% possible to build a different database that stores lesson data about the same credentials, or to not use our database if you wanted to, okay? That's a lot of infrastructure work to take on, right? And so that's why we have an Andamio API that wraps all of that up and delivers it as a cohesive response to a single endpoint, right? I can hit an API endpoint for this course where I want to get a particular course module, and that endpoint gets me the learning targets, the on-chain state, and the off-chain data, like the lesson text and the assignment text and the title of the module, all right? One of the things we will continue to look at together is how you can use the API directly instead of using this app. But we should say before starting that that API just gives you all of the same data as this app, right? It's not taking it to the full extreme of only using the on-chain data and not relying on our database, if that makes sense. Harsha, what do you think?
Yeah, that makes total sense. I have two follow-up questions exactly on this topic. One is, so our previous credentials have a hash, right? So how are we tagging on the credential, the course ID / SLTs onto our previous hash? Is it just like a, that's one question. And the second one is the address. You said every credential has an address. Is the credential not metadata on our token?
Excellent. Okay, these are really good questions. This is fun. And you can just let Harsha and I keep going, but if anybody else has questions, please throw up a hand. Okay, so to your first question, Andamio a few months ago migrated from version 1 of our on-chain contracts to version 2. There were a few reasons we needed to migrate, and many of them were surfaced when our global validators were audited by TXPipe. And it gave us a chance to fix those, make sure this is really ready for the level of production that we're aiming for. Along the way, we realized that we had learned some things from V1, and we made some changes I'm really excited about to V2. The system now requires fewer transactions. It's cheaper to run. I think it's overall more accessible how the whole thing works. But when we did that, we had to migrate credentials, right? So to Harsha's question, every credential I've ever earned, yeah, it has a course ID.SLT hash, but what about those V1 credentials? Here's how we solved that problem. We took all of the course IDs that had been minted in V1, and we created a new V2 version of those course IDs. This means that those policy IDs changed, all right? So a V1 policy ID was mapped to a V2 policy ID, and then we migrated ownership from V1 to V2 of those owners. So if you had a unique identifier for a V1 credential, the SLT hash wouldn't have to change at all. Those migrated directly over. But the course ID did change. So far, so good on that one. And remind me what the second question was. I was even more excited about that, but
Just the address. Is it not metadata? Like, why would it have an address?
okay. So no, this is a really important design characteristic of Andamio. We're not just logging metadata in Cardano transactions, right? We are adding to the datum field of the UTXOs themselves. All right, so for anybody who understands Cardano development, this part matters to you. If I lose you right here, I'm only gonna lose you for the next 18 seconds. Here we go, okay? There's two ways you can put data on chain on Cardano. One of them is in transactions. That's called metadata. It's like writing on the back of a receipt who you were on a date with when you went out to dinner, okay? On the other hand, datum goes directly in the UTXOs. It's like writing a message on a dollar bill and then letting that dollar bill circulate through the world. It's much more interesting than that, however, because the datum in our UTXOs, you can write validation code against that. You can't write validation code against transaction metadata. All right, that was more than 18 seconds, but I hope if you're into Cardano development, there you go. Okay. If you're brand new to all this, start listening again. Okay. What it means for all of us is that we can write smart contracts that account for the credentials that people hold. Okay. More importantly, this means we can use any credential that's ever been created as a gatekeeper to earning new ones. Now, that's the generalized case. Let's bring it back to the specific case that many people here are familiar with. What this means is you can build a course where people complete one or more course modules like these. They earn a credential for each one, and then you can build a project where people might commit to tasks and earn real tokens. But the only people who can commit to those tasks, they must have earned whatever credentials you say are necessary. You want to join my project? Yes, I hope you will join my project. But first, you have to do modules 101, 102, and 103 right here. Once you've done those and you've earned those credentials, the door is open. Come on in and make a commitment to a task. If this data was only in metadata, that would not be possible. Because it's in datum, that's what we have the ability to do, is not just earn a badge, but to have a credential that can be used as the key to whatever doors anybody else creates. When you create a new project, you don't just give it a title. You must define what the lock and keys are to that project. You do that by specifying which courses and which modules somebody must have done first to join your project. What do you think? Diego.
Let me say something crazy. So the Web3 world and the AI world have been converging for a while, right? And one of the things that people are learning is that if you want to implement, AI agents or workflows at scale, you need trust, you need guardrails, you need confidence that they are actually doing what you want them to do, right? And right now, the solution is to basically write these guardrails in markdown files that are very specifically formatted for agents to understand what the output is, what not to do, what to do, and so on and so forth, right? So here's my crazy question. Can we use in the future a smart contract as a type of guardrail that basically says this transaction is valid if you meet very specific criteria for this very specific, I don't know, agent workflow? Does that make any sense?
It really does. Yeah, keep going, keep going.
No, I think that people treat, models like magic, but they're not magic. They're very, very structured pieces of software, right? And they're basically guessing what you want based on what you give them, right? They behave better, and I've learned this by experimenting with very small local models through Olama. I don't know if anybody has played with that before, but it's pretty cool to play with models that are not super smart, right? Because you really see the limitations. But when you play with those, you have to give them a ton of guardrails and feedback, and like you use XML tags, or you really format things in a very, very structured way. And I'm wondering if giving a course, like an intro course to an agent and saying like, okay, train on this, give me very specific outputs. Only if you pass my tests, let's put it that way, you're then able to contribute on chain, let's say, to this project that is a follow-up. Does that make any sense?
It really does. And I've been thinking about this a lot. And let's talk about this from a few angles, right? One, I think that everything we're talking about here with credentials that are based on learning targets like these, right? Who's the I in this I can statement? Is it just an individual person? Could it be an agent? Or is it likely enough that it's a combination, right? Most people, when they say I can these days, it's April of 2026, right? If I say I can, where's the first place I'm going after I tell somebody I can? Right? And so if you combine this idea and we assume that we're working with people who, even if they're not using an agent all the time, might be accessing one and they want it to work, right? If I need somebody on my team who can deploy a midnight DApp, right? What really matters? It matters that they can do it. Does it matter to me that they used an agent? What if they automated the whole thing? Did the work get done? But let's take it a step further. Because Diego, you pointed out the most important piece. I agree with you. Models are not magic. But when you add the right harness to the right model, it starts to feel like magic, right? And I can go to a web-based chat bot, ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, and I know that it doesn't feel like magic. But when I load in my context, magic happens. Where's the value? Right? We're moving into a world where the underlying model is a utility, and they're still figuring out, right, the pricing, and we're probably going to look back on these days as the golden era where you could get a pretty high level of unlimited access for a monthly fee, right? That can't last forever, right? But on top of those base models, what we're all building are harnesses, right? Or sets of context or skills. There's lots of language for different parts of that stack, right? And if I've built a local harness or a local set of skills, those have value. If I give those to somebody else, now they can build upon the work we've been doing and collaborate with them. And so I would say that giving people access to my markdown files is something I want to be careful about. Wouldn't it be nice if I could give people access to those if they've earned a credential? Okay, so that's something I've been thinking about a lot, and I would love to bring that question to 300 clients in the next 3 months. So if you want to help, let's do it. Right? But I think this is a problem that people are starting to understand, and you started to pinpoint it, right? We are working in this world where we're going to be supported by agents, and we supercharge that power based on the context we have access to. Okay.
Yeah. And I think you're hitting something very important. If you go to a business leader who's scared and don't know how these things work, their main issue is that they can't really trust this, but they will operate it based on FOMO, right? So based on fear of missing out, they will pull the trigger. Now, if they knew there's a solution, another layer that brings trust and says like, we are setting the guardrails. You can have your harness, that's very helpful, but you also need guardrails, and you need confirmation or a way to make sure that what you think needs to happen is happening. Boom, let's go. I think that's That's one of the things that people need to feel safe about, right?
This is actually related to the demo I was going to share today. Is it okay if we keep the Q&A going? But if I put something else on the screen to kind of see where we go with this idea? Right. Just jump in, throw up a hand, or just unmute and interrupt me whenever you need to, okay? So I'm going to jump back to the agenda, and I want to get back to this feedback. This is really important. So let's if nothing else, we'll wrap with this. But I want to show you this new Andamio dev course, okay? It's already here on pre-prod just as an example, okay? It's got learning targets, okay? And I have a more raw demo to share, maybe in a more informal space. We could pick this up tomorrow in the garage, okay? But you can see, right? Sure, it's accessible via this web interface. I want to show you the source code for this course. And did we make it public yet? Yeah, good. So anybody can play around with this right now. This repo has all of the content that I just showed on my screen that's on the Andamio app. But there's 3 ways to interact with it, okay? And you don't have to go to the website to view it. You could just download this repo, open this up in the harness of your choice, Claude Code or whatever, and type /learn. And you'll work through the exact same course that we're looking at right here, but guided by an agent, an instructor who takes you step by step through the lesson, right? So reading, still possible. And if you want to go back and read it this way, you should. I like doing this, right? I like when I've been testing this out, I keep both open side by side. I have the text of the lesson so I can scan it with my own eyes. And then I have my friendly instructor right here guiding me through the lesson step by step. And because we have tools now like Andamio CLI, you can download this. It's a one-line install if you have Homebrew, okay? And you can authenticate into Andamio CLI just like you can authenticate into this app. And then you don't have to touch this app at all. But you can interact from your command line with all the exact same commands. Or if you really want to be crazy, you could give your agent access to Andamio CLI. And you could even tell it where your signing keys are. And it can just do all of this. What do you think? Yeah, right. So if you wanted to experiment with this, there's also the question of, right, are you comfortable pulling down a Git repo like this? Whoops. Right. But this one right here is mostly, you don't have to run it. It also has a front end built in, just that's for pioneers who want to play around with it. Okay, it's modeled after the Midnight and Go one that we were playing with at Gimbal Labs last week.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is a front end here if you want to just customize your own front end, but you also don't have to touch that. The content is all here. All of the lesson text is here in markdown files. Really easy for an agent to read. All right. This is redundant, and we're trying to figure out if this redundancy is worth it, right? Like I don't actually have to supply this content in a Git repo because you can also use Andamio CLI just to pull down the lesson content, just like it appears here. So you have both options, and anybody is welcome to play with those. But I think this is a really interesting avenue to start exploring, right? A web interface, we know these are already dying.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's
Compare-
my I mean, that's been my experience. I mean, I'll have the course open, and this is the Aiken PBL, anything that I want to learn, tutorial, all the Go PBL stuff. I've got that web interface up, whether it's standalone or in a course, in Andamio, the Andamio LMS, learning management system. So, but then I have my AI. My AI is constant, and it's sort of janky in the fact that it can't do things, or it doesn't have the proper context. That's why this to me is very interesting as sort of designing as a course designer or a learning interaction designer, like how this might affect it. I'd love to jump in and do this. But to that question of how comfortable I feel pretty comfortable, and I just got comfortable. Repo, installing, setting the environmental variables, maybe there's a database, maybe there's a so-and-so, figuring all that stuff out. But I still, after maybe a year of AI development, I still am not 100% certain of if I'm correctly connecting my AI to it. So that's sort of a personal goal, is to figure out how to do this, and this would be a great. I think this would be a great test case.
This one is live and ready for you to start playing with it. I'm going to migrate it over to mainnet in the next days. Okay. But it's available on pre-prod just to start playing with it. Just remember, if you earn credentials, they'll be on pre-prod, right? So we want people earning those mainnet credentials once this is live.
Okay, I see.
I'm doing the same exact thing with the Midnight PBL course. Okay, so if people want to step away from Andamio development, because that'll allow you to recognize that you're learning a different thing, but you're still using Andamio to learn it, right? You can disaggregate between those two things if you want to jump in and try the Midnight PBL. You saw that on my screen a moment ago in the course list. Same thing, it's on pre-prod just for testing right now, but this will be on mainnet within the next few days. All right. And it's going to be accessible this way. It'll also be accessible via a standalone website, right? You don't have to consume this content through this app. It'll be a standalone course on a standalone website, and you can look at it there and grab that source code. But also, it's available to be used agent first, like I was just showing you. And anybody who wants to jump into that, you're welcome to. That's related, actually. Nikhil mentioned Cardano XP and this concept, right? The concept of XP is that now that we can build courses like this, now that we can build apps very quickly, feedback is a priceless resource that humans can give to each other. Right. And so at the launch of XP, one of the first feedback opportunities is to look at the Midnight course and to look at this Andamio dev course and give feedback on it. Earn some tokens for that. Right. And I'll keep going until I'm interrupted. But now, just to bring this full circle to what a credential is. Okay. The reason we're doing the XP experiment is not because we want to distribute tokens. Okay. The only reason we're doing this experiment is because that's how a project credential actually works. Remember how I described earlier that a course credential is the hash of the learning targets? A project credential, to oversimplify just a tiny bit, is the hash of all of the tokens you've earned working in that project. So in other words, there can be a credential that says you've earned 100 or more ADA in sustain and maintain Gimbal Labs project. a credential can be you've earned at least 50 XP via Cardano XP, if that makes sense, right? So it's another way to summarize, right? Here we're summarizing the text of learning targets into a hash. On the project side, we just summarize the amount of tokens you've earned here into a hash. And that's really why we're doing that XP experiment, is to see, okay, yeah, people gave feedback. They got these XP tokens, and now they have a provable credential to say that they did so. Ian, what do you think?
That's where we are going in as far as education is concerned, and career, like growing your career. But my question involves say I'm building a standalone app and I need courses, or rather there are relevant courses made by other teachers that are relevant to my standalone app. Now, how there's something I'm not understanding in terms of how we handle fees, because this is an app I've built and this is a course belonging to another teacher, and still we've built on Andamio, yet the unifying thing in all three of them is that there are transaction fees that go to the treasury. Do we share the fees based on sending like a header to the database, so it can know these transactions came from this app or this teacher? I'm curious about that.
Oh my God, I'm so excited about where you're going with this. And just to be specific, which fees are you talking about in this case?
I'm approaching Andamio from a teaching point of view, because I want to build a decentralized degree for blockchain technology. I haven't seen any, and I do believe that we are like almost a decade or 7 to 5 years behind before universities start saying that they are going to offer blockchain technology. Yet it's something that we need. And also there's a mismatch in incentives where you can't always rely on the chains and the ecosystems to educate and to onboard new developers, because they have shifting interests. Maybe one day the meta is stable coins, the next it's AI agents. So they usually onboard new developers up to a certain point, and then all other information becomes inaccessible to other devs from that point of view.
Beautiful. Yes. Okay. So this is, if we're talking about fees, it sounds like you're imagining one where the student is paying some fee to access the content.
Yeah, because of the teacher or the lecturer.
Yeah.
They also need to sustain their lives.
Right. And so there's two levels here, right? There's the situation where you build an app that's functioning as this blockchain university, and that ought to be a business, and you need a way to collect fees from people who are learning that content. And we're going to come back to that in just a second. The other piece of the puzzle is maybe you didn't write all of that content. And so there's other people trying to make a living by putting valuable course content out there. And this matches, right? The university system. You have textbook providers, and then you have the teachers who use those textbooks and deliver them. All of that we need to consider, right? So let's take the second one first, because it's a relatively easy problem to understand, but we don't have a solution yet, okay? The problem is, what if Ian's Blockchain Academy wants to use Newman's course about logical fallacies? Okay. How does that value get exchanged? We have some hypotheses, but we haven't implemented anything yet. All right. For now, all we have is the ability to publish a course on Andamio and for it to be accessible to people who have the API. What we are adding as an enterprise feature in the next release, we're just rolling out version 2.2 right now. Okay, so that's live on pre-prod now. It'll be live on mainnet tomorrow. But the next version, 2.3, will have a gating feature where you can actually hide your content and restrict it to only who you want to see it, right? So what's public? The learning targets are public, but your lesson content doesn't have to be. It doesn't, right? You shouldn't assume that just because you published a course on Andamio, you want all of your lessons to show up here on this public page or to be accessible by everybody who has Andamio CLI and can plug it into an agent. Maybe you want gated private lesson content, okay? So we're working towards that part, but what we don't yet have, and I would love partners in developing this, is the right way for Ian to compensate Newman for the course Newman wrote and that Ian's using in the academy, right? Maybe this requires tokenomics for the first time. Maybe there's other creative ways that we could address it, but if you like a juicy problem, think about that one. Okay. Now let's go back to the initial problem that Ian posed, right? Which is, let's say I want to build a business delivering this different content, right? How, right? How are fees shared? Well, part of that is in the answer to the first question, right? Like, how does Ian pay Newman for Newman's course, right? But then on the Andamio side, you would probably not want your lesson content to just, at whatever lesson content you decide to write, maybe you don't want it here. That's handled by the premium feature, right, of being able to hide it from public view. And then finally, to the question of what about the Andamio API fees, right? Once a course exists, the only on-chain fees are Cardano fees, right? So I'll tell you when Andamio makes money for a course. We make money when you create the course for the very first time, right? It's a little bit less than 150 ADA to mint a course NFT. And then when you want to add additional teachers, it's 10 ADA per teacher. And these, so you can see, these are reasonable fees at 25-cent ADA. When ADA is worth $10, those fees will change, to be fair, right? But for now, that's how we will keep the lights on, is by making sure that we collect approximately $37 when somebody creates a course and approximately $2.50 for additional teachers, okay? After that's done, there's no other Andamio fees. There's Cardano blockchain fees, okay, but that's all from the on-chain side. Make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
So this is a fun problem. Now, Ian already started us off by saying reach out in Discord, right? And so if those ideas are inspiring, you want to help build a blockchain academy, you know who to reach out to. You want to play around with consuming these courses or gating access to valuable context files, hit up Diego hit me up. All right. What else? Lewis, what do you think?
Thanks, James. And also thanks again for asking that question. So now I've been thinking about the Andamio scan, right? And hypothetically, let's say I've already built my own academy and I want to verify some of these on-chain transactions. How do I go on about that?
Excellent. So yeah, let's look at a few examples of transactions here. So this is on Andamio scan. I'm on the pre-prod version right now. And this is just the public ledger of what's going on chain. Let's look at a few examples to see what's public, right? So create course. Here's what I can see of the create course transaction. I can see what the course ID is, and I can see who created it. I can't see the title from here, actually. Okay, but if you know which course you're looking for, you can see some other things, and you can search for that course ID. What can I see on a course dashboard? I can see the learning targets. Remember, like those are in transactions. They're not stored in datum. Only the hash is the module token name, right? But the learning targets are used in a transaction as the redeemer to this validator. And that's why we can see them right here. So here's the learning targets. I can see what each individual credential, right? Course ID dot credential, course ID dot credential. There's those unique identifiers we were talking about, right? But I can't see the lessons. All I can see is that the credentials exist and I can see what they represent. And so you can track this, right? Anybody can see, hey, what credentials are available in this course? Oh, there they are. As for the lessons, now we're going back to that last conversation. For now, they're all public on Andamio, but they don't have to be. Right? What are some other things that can happen in a course? Well, a course might have some students active in it, or it might have some people who claimed credentials, they're alumni. You would see a list of that here, right? And you wouldn't see the evidence they used to earn those credentials. You would just see that they did earn them. Right, so I can't read your assignment that you submitted, but I can see that it was accepted by the teachers. Let's see, here's an assess assignments transaction. What can we see? We can see who assessed it and who was assessed.
So the Andamio kind will feature everything as a collective, or okay,
right? But even if Ian's Blockchain Academy locks down their content and nobody from the outside can read those really valuable lessons, what you'll still see here is that people are earning those credentials for doing those lessons. Right? And in fact, maybe that would make people interested. We might see that his course is absolutely lighting up the event log right here. We might go to that course and we might see that it has 200 alumni. Damn, that's a really nice course. I need to go talk to Ian. I want to take that course too, right? I can see the people are taking it, but I can't see what's in it.
Okay, thank you.
What are you thinking?
I'm just thinking in terms of would it be a bit messy, for example, if an academy, I want to verify my credential that I did, a course I did on an academy, and I come to Andamio scan and I'm thinking, what if something, they can't have the same hash. They can't have the same hash. I'm just thinking about it would be like crowded, in my opinion. So, yeah. And that makes sense in my head, right? As long as you can view it. Yeah.
I'm excited to hear what marinates after you walk around with these ideas. Keep going.
Yeah. And I was earlier today during Easter holiday. I think I broke my Andamio when I was playing with the markdown file with the course I had, and I wanted to see if the AI agent could break it down into modules and assignments. Don't know what I did wrong, but like that brought up the question of the Andamio scat. So I thought I'd ask it.
If there's a specific bug, we can always look at bugs during this session. So if you've got anything you want, happy to take a look.
Okay. We'll talk about that later, James. I have way more questions that I have no answers to just yet.
I'll share that in this new dev course that will be going live. Okay. One of the first lessons where you first install and configure Andamio CLI, right? Always, here's the hello world, do the version check, right? And the first thing we have you do is learn how to compute a hash of a credential. All right, so that's built in because it will be a headache to always need to validate this or that, right? And so there are hash computation functions in Andamio CLI for course credentials. There they are. There's the SLTs. And for project tasks and for evidence too, right? When you submit an assignment or a task, you type in right now, right? You type into the Andamio UI your evidence. That evidence gets stored to our database, but the only people who can see the full text of that evidence are the teachers and that student, right? But we hash the evidence and we put that on chain. Why? Well, this is the evidence that you used to show that you could do this thing. And if you ever want to prove it to somebody else, now you can bring down the evidence that you have access to, put it in a markdown file, send it over, right? And that person could say, I want to validate that this is the evidence that actually earned this credential. And so it always gives you that opportunity of checking again. Bring that back to Diego's idea of operating inside the agent. Hey, we said this agent could do this thing. What did it do when we said that? Oh, check the logs. The hash of what it did is on chain. Let's go find the markdown file or the tip-tap content that produced that hash. Can you put these puzzle pieces together in a few different ways?
I'm just thinking about Ian's question again, yeah? On compensation for the teacher building the course, right? And I'm thinking in the terms of, okay, I'm a lecturer at Ian Academy and Gimbal Labs Academy and Newman Academy, and I have a course on one particular topic, and compensation-wise, will that be able to like, interoperability, right?
Mm-hmm.
Interoperability, yeah. Just thinking. I'm just rambling at this point.
No. This is a really important point, and you reminded me of another thing that I meant to share regarding Ian's response. I want to show you just really quickly. This user has too many courses. That's my default testing wallet. I think this one has slightly fewer. Let's just jump in here because I want to show you how it's currently built, and this is not how it will be built forever. Okay, so this is test admin. It Let's see. Here. So this admin account has 6 courses. Yeah. If I go to create a new project, and I can give it whatever title I want, this list of courses right here is only limited to courses where I'm already the owner. That's the current state. That's not where we want to be forever. We want anybody to be able to create a course and use somebody else's course as a prerequisite. But we recognize that we have to solve the value transfer problem there, right? Does Ian want just anybody to freely use his credentials, right? Or should there be some value exchanged when somebody says, oh, that's a really good course, I need to use it as a prerequisite for my project, right? So the way we're solving it here is just by simply gating what this owner can see when they make a new project. And we have some big, interesting, unanswered questions about what it means when one person's course is another person's prerequisite. I'll pass it over to Nori.
Just thinking about the question Lewis had, because we're building an API and a protocol, like if you wanted to set up like an academy where teachers could charge fees for the courses and do all that, you can build all that. Like none of that's dictated by the Andamio protocol itself. We just recording the SLTs and the credentials and making all of it secure and on-chain. But you could build your own platform to say, okay, these courses cost $30, sign up, and you build all that infrastructure. And then once you do the lessons content and the assignments are submitted and approved, that goes on chain using the Andamio protocol. But the actual academy bit can be completely custom. And yeah, we don't stop you from doing that whatsoever. And that's something I would love to see, is 100 different ways of different creators and educational institutions and different things being able to build their own solutions on top of the protocol. And then they're interoperable with other people. So if you did have a project that said, hey, we accept degrees from this digital academy on this topic as proof of competency, then it's transferable to those kind of opportunities and things like that. We just wanted to throw that out there. It's like, we're not going to build every possible thing either, but we're also not stopping people. We want them to build stuff.
Thank you, Nori. That was great.
We have just 15 minutes left, so I promised I want to go back and make sure we do cover the feedback. We usually start here. And Nikhil, thanks for this one. I skipped over it because it felt like we might be building some background knowledge about this one. So let's finish up by addressing this question directly, okay? I would like to know whether credentials once issued by course project owners can be updated and revoked in the future. So this is another place where it gets really interesting, right? If you know how Cardano works, you know that once somebody mints a token, there's no way for somebody else to take it from them other than to steal it, right? There's, if you own the wallet and you own the UTXOs that hold the asset, nobody can take that asset away from you. So what does this mean? First and foremost, if you mint an access token, it's yours now, done, right? If you earn credentials on that access token, they're there, they're burned onto your access token. And now they're accessible. However, anybody who's using Andamio credentials can build an app that has a do not allow list, right? You would build that into your own business logic. It's not enforced on chain, right? But you can very easily say, hey, look, here's from the system or the app I'm building, here's the list of people who can't use it. You can make a revocation list of your own. We have on chain the ability for the same kind of, it's not necessarily a revocation list. I think it's best to call it a do not allow list. But when you build a project with a prerequisite, and there's people who, for whatever reason, surface as bad actors and you don't want them to be able to commit to tasks, you can do that. All right. And that part is enforceable on chain at the individual local state level, but it's a local state decision, not a global decision. After everything else we've covered, does that make sense that that would have to be local and not global? Right. And that's a conscious decision, right? We might have the best intentions for managing a revocation list, but who knows where the Andamio protocol goes off into the future. We thought it was better to not have at the global level the ability to shut anybody off. However, every single local state, every course, and every project can decide not to allow whatever individuals they don't want to allow. Questions about that idea? And we haven't launched that feature yet in the APIs. If you're really clever, you can figure out how to use it by building on-chain transactions. That's a fun side quest, okay? But we're gonna release that feature when we realize that Andamio has matured to the point where it actually needs it. So as you surface use cases, we'll decide how fast to move on that one. Well, thanks. What did we do today? An opening question. What do you want to build? We saw there was about a 50-50 split of people who are starting to have clear ideas versus people who are still exploring. And then we just jumped into an open Q&A that took us, I think, to a few really exciting places. So thanks for your generosity with those questions. I'm excited about what everybody here is thinking about and excited that we get to keep thinking about it together. So please do follow up with each other, follow up in the Andamio Discord, DM me anytime. I've been a little slow on personal messages the last few days because we're launching v2.2. We'll get caught up on all that over the next few days. So sorry about that if that's been the case. I took a moment to introduce Andamio Dev, and you have access to it. That link is in the chat. And then we closed out by addressing some feedback. Remember, one thing you can always do in this course, if you're not sure where else to say something, go to this repo, click on issues, and add a new issue right here. All right, this is feedback, and this is priceless. People who are giving each other feedback right now, you're doing something that no robot can ever do for each other. Right? What do you really think? What's your real feedback on the thing? And so thanks for the issues that have come in. Keep them coming as you get ideas for what you want to build, things that are broken, things that don't work, things you want to understand better, things that really confused you, things you're excited about, whatever. Tap the new issue button, you add it here, it becomes part of next week's agenda.